when the larger community tells a smaller part of the community that it's necessary to move them from their homes because the land is needed for progress or improvement, and proceeds to use the power of government to effect the relocation, the total community has the obligation to see that those being displaced can be moved with dignity and without suffering financial loss.
Howdy do, everybody. Steve the Amateur Historian here with you again. Getting over what has recently been a cough slash runny nose slash somewhat sore throaty type thing, but considering the stories that I'm about to bring to you today, this is a small thing. This is easy potatoes. So to start things off, I've got two stories to bring to you today, and the first one is coming from the Rose Quarter. It's the Moda Center behind me. That's where the Blazers play. The reason I'm in the Rose Quarter area is not to tell you a story about the Moda Center, Rose Garden, but actually to talk to you about its predecessor, the Portland Memorial Coliseum, which is that building right there. So Portland's Veterans Memorial Coliseum, which we're looking at right now, is best known for being known as a place where the Portland Trailblazers played their basketball games from 1970 till 1995. However, the building actually began its construction in 1958 and was completed in 1959. And there's actually been talks about possibly tearing the old Coliseum down. I don't know if they want to put a new sports complex in there or what exactly, because with the Moda Center there, the parking garage and all the stuff here, I mean, this is like primarily all a sports complex, and with how compact Portland is, especially around downtown, like they really can't afford to lose sports recreational space because they're not really going to be able to retrieve it later on. So if they do choose to get rid of the Coliseum, I'm assuming they're going to put some other sports-related complex in its place. That said, and all sports aside, what a few people know is that technically right now we're on kind of the southern tip of the Albina neighborhood. So, I mean, since 1959, the borders could have been changed, but when this particular building was being conceived, being built, we were technically in the Albina neighborhood. Now, in 1958, this was all residential Albina neighborhood. And what happened was, essentially the city, using their infinite power, they said, we need a space to put our sports complex. We need a sports complex for a growing city. So, you know, they didn't have a whole lot of space to work with. They wanted to keep it close to downtown, right across the river. And the city essentially just took this land, eminent domain, if you will. They just took this land to build the Coliseum. So in 1958, 476 homes were taken away from their owners, predominantly black, because Albina was a predominantly black neighborhood. It still is. So at least a couple hundred black families just had their homes taken away from them, bulldozed, laid out so that Portland could get its new sports complex. And I know any major American city you go to, things like that happen at least once or twice, but what's really sad about the Memorial Coliseum story is that I've got an equally tragic story to bring to you just a little ways north, up that way. And from the Memorial Coliseum, we are now about 2 miles north, more kind of into the heart of the Albina neighborhood, because we're about to see how history manages to repeat itself. Now, if you've seen my videos, you may recognize this next place we're about to go to from my Hill Block video. And I briefly touch on that particular area because that's actually where I'm going back to. I was kind of misled into believing that that particular spot, because it looks like all commerce, that when they tore that down for the hospital, that kind of just a row of kind of old business buildings got knocked out. So I was like, that sucks. I wish the Hill Block was still here, but I thought that was kind of the long and the short of it. But actually what they bought right up here, this is Williams Avenue and Russell. This block that's, vacant, obviously where Hill Block was, this was part of a massive piece of property bought by the Emanuel Hospital up the road a little ways. And I don't remember if I mentioned it, but, obviously, the plans for this property haven't come to fruition because still, years, decades later, this property is just sitting here empty. However, during my last visit to this location, I was unaware as to how sad the story of this property truly was. It's kind of beat up, kind of honestly desolate stretch of property not only housed Hill Block, which I'm pretty much standing right where that building was. There was a lot more property over here. It was a pretty good chunk of land, and there were homes scattered all through here. See where this is going? I think over 250 homes in this area were destroyed for the projects that the hospital, which is located over there, tried to push through. This all started in 1960. The hospital claimed that they were too small and that they were fearing encroachment. That was kind of the game they were playing. And they claimed that they needed this land, they needed to expand, they needed to do more stuff. And essentially it took years, but essentially the city of Portland worked in conjunction with the hospital completely behind the backs of the people that lived here, literally right here. And by 1970, they'd gone through all the minutia, the garbage that you got to go through when you want to, buy land and build something. They went through all that. Portland, the hospital, had already settled, and they were going to make this property into another piece of the hospital. It wouldn't be till a couple months later before they even addressed this issue with the people who were living here. By the time they actually asked the people who lived here what they wanted, because maybe that was pertinent, they had already agreed to give this property away. And what's so sad is most of the people who lived here, they weren't renting homes. They weren't in the process of buying homes. They had bought those homes. They had bought the property that was here. And eminent domain at its finest, the city just took it away completely illegally. And even when they told the people that were living here, like, oh, well, now we want to hear what you think now that it's all set in stone, they didn't listen to anything they said. What is so sad is they relied on inaccurate information that suggested that there was actually a pretty considerable number of homes available in this neighborhood for people to move into, which turned out to be erroneous information. And they actually told the people that were living here, not only are we going to just take away your homes, we're not going to make sure you find better ones, because there's enough homes in this area that just move out, you'll find something. That was literally the attitude permeated by the city. Wonderful, awesome, liberal Portland. One of the most tragic stories in the whole history of this city, because hundreds of families were displaced by this. And ultimately, in the end, they managed to build, I don't even know if it's still around, but they built apparently really a good piece of housing in this area so that a lot of people could move into there. They kind of gave in. And then, of course, the most tragic element of all, by 1971, the hospital started plans for construction on all the stuff they were going to do in this area. And by 1973, the funds that they were getting, the federal funds they were getting, had dried up. And they ended up canceling the project. And destroyed hundreds of homes, completely shook up, tore apart, tore asunder the lives of hundreds of families, again, predominantly black. It's funny how when you're in the neighborhood where the population isn't really all that white, the city just kind of does what it wants. You know, has that changed that much? I don't really know. I don't really think so in many circumstances. So, all these people had their lives completely screwed up, had their homes taken away, black and white taken away, and in the end, it was for absolutely nothing. You know, I said when I was going to start doing this series, it wasn't all going to be flowery stories. Oh, look at this time when something went great for this person. No, in addressing Black History Month, I'm addressing Black history of Portland, the real nitty-gritty. And these are the kind of things they want us to forget. Even Emanuel Hospital, they've tried to, in some ways, make amends for their dumb, stupid decision. But I'm like, you know, where was all this compassion in 1960? Where was all this compassion in 1970, where you willingly went behind the backs of people, willingly, knowingly, went behind the backs of people who lived right here, their homes were right here, and you destroyed their homes, and you were so ill-prepared, you were so just ahead of the game that you didn't think down the road, and in the end, it ended up being all for absolutely nothing. This is the dark side of Portland history. And with this being such a sad video, I figured I'd end it on a positive note, so woohoo! Hill Block Dome again. Didn't get a chance to sit down here last time because there was somebody here, but you know, the Hill Block Dome is, you know, it's pertinent. It's actually a pretty good way to end the video because this is all that remains of this total fraudulent, crooked story wherein people were essentially told their rights don't matter. And this great hill block dome, the remains of a building that stood at the corner of Williams and Russell where I just was, this is all that's left of that whole entire small neighborhood that was destroyed. So, once again, this is Steve the Amateur Historian. See you next time.